Welcome to another episode of the Doctors Building Wealth podcast. Today, we are going to be talking about beliefs, and we're going to be talking about how everything starts as a belief and how you can use your beliefs to break through to achieve what appears to be impossible. So, we wanted to kind of start out with this idea and this question for all of you. If you look around you in the room that you're in right now, or maybe you're driving in your car and you look in your car, you look outside, maybe you see some buildings, maybe you see a road. One thing you're going to notice is that everything that is around you that is human made starts with a belief of somebody. Somebody said, I'm going to put a road here. And somebody originally said, hey, what's a road? I'm going to create a road. Somebody said, I'm going to build the house that you live in. And they created the architectural plans, and a contractor came in and built that house. Everything started in a human belief in their minds that is human made. And that is really a remarkable thing to even start considering.
Yeah, and I think about since you're talking about driving, I think about, I used to drive around a lot and look at these big apartment buildings. And I used to say to myself, like, wow, that's pretty cool. That's cool for somebody else, but definitely not for me. I remember saying that to myself. And then more recently, after I overcame that limiting belief, I look at these buildings and I go, yeah, someday we're gonna own that really nice, beautiful, A B plus class property in a nice neighborhood, and it's gonna be awesome.
So every human has ever created, every human achievement starts with a belief. Every invention, every goal reached, every dream realized starts with somebody believing it was possible in the first place. So, what does it have to do with you? Well, we're going to be talking about the importance of your beliefs in helping you to achieve what you want and helping you build the future that you want.
And also realizing that if you want to achieve something, maybe something that you thought was maybe impossible for you, or maybe impossible in general, you have to realize that it all starts with that belief that you can do it, that you can come up with the idea, that you can actually take the right actions to actually achieve it. Now, there may be a lot of ups and downs along the way. You better believe there will be, especially if this is something new and new territory. But what you have to realize again is that the key is starting with that belief.
Yeah, and I'd like to actually add to the beginning of this podcast one thing that one of our mentors has said to us that I think if you really take it on as one of your beliefs, can change how you approach a lot of things. It's that if you ever have an idea or you have a belief or you have something that you really want in your mind that you want to create, you were only given that idea or allowed to have that idea because it's possible for you to do it. And so when you start thinking that way, that means any idea that pops into your mind that seems so scary, that seems so beyond what is possible for you, that, it popped into your mind because you have that potential of creating it. You don't have to, of course, but the potential is there. And I love that idea and I've absolutely adopted it. And so when these kind of crazy harebrained, quote unquote, ideas come into my mind, I'm like, you know what? It came into it because it's possible for me. Now, do I want to do it or do I not?
Well, I wanted to flip this around though and talk about, like, what if you don't believe something is possible? And this happens to a lot of people who come into our community and they don't believe that they can go out and successfully buy real estate
Or
investments, right?
or build 500,000 in cash flow over 10 years or whatever it is. You can insert any number in there.
Right. And so I wanted to talk about the other side is that if you don't believe something is possible, then it's very, very unlikely to happen. I'm not saying it's impossible it's going to happen, but I'm saying that it's going to be unlikely because you're not going to even take the steps towards achieving that goal if you don't believe. And so just wanted to also say that the lack of belief can be very harmful, right? And really impede your success.
And that goes to Henry Ford's quote, which is oftentimes used, which is whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're right. Meaning that if you believe it's possible for you, you absolutely can do it. But if you choose to believe it's impossible or you can't do it, then you're absolutely right too. Even if you choose to pursue it you don't believe it's possible, you're going to take small action, you're going to take insufficient action, and you're going to be much more likely to give up. And so you will literally fulfill that prophecy of whatever you believe, which is really quite remarkable to think about.
I want to then now talk about the next set of beliefs that really impact you. And so we talked about, okay, you need to have that initial belief. But once you start going in a direction, once you start believing, okay, maybe this is possible for me, then what happens is you run into a whole nother set of beliefs. And these are limiting beliefs. these are the types of things that get in the way. These are the types of beliefs where you say, I'm not smart enough, or I don't have enough money. I don't have enough time. That's a very, very common one.
Or you start to make global limiting beliefs about how the world works. This is impossible for women because of, or this won't happen for me because I'm working full time. Or you're starting to kind of put in more global beliefs about how things work in the world that aren't specifically related to your skill set or your time or your money, but are more global beliefs.
Yeah, how about this one? Now's not a great time to invest because, right? And you can literally put in the market is too hot. That was like back in 2020, 2021. That's what people were saying. Then it was like, oh, because it's COVID, right? And I can't go see these properties. I can't buy any real estate. And then it was interest rates, right? So, literally I can't buy real estate because of something external, right? And not internal. And so, like you said, it can be internal, it can be external factors. Ultimately, you're limiting yourself, and it all starts with these different beliefs that are getting in the way.
Yeah. And what's so insidious about limiting beliefs is a lot of times we don't recognize them. We think they're the truth, right? We absolutely believe them. And oftentimes we're around people who just reinforce our limiting beliefs because they have the same kind of worldview or they have the same view of what's possible and they reinforce it in you and then you don't question them. And what's so powerful about getting around people who see the world differently than you do, or people who have been doing personal development work who have gotten rid of a lot of limiting beliefs, or even people who start to at least get some recognition of limiting beliefs, is they can kind of recognize them. Now, one question is, are they going to say anything to you? I think a lot of times people don't, right? That they will, they don't want to disagree with you about your limiting belief and your worldview. And so they let you speak and they let you live in it. But a really great friend and somebody who, you know, does it from a space of love and care, but has a relationship enough with you that they're able to really question them, is a powerful thing to have in your life, because they can point out those potential limiting beliefs. They can do so in a way that allows you to maybe see that it's a limiting belief, instead of just saying, no, you're wrong, that's a limiting belief. They say, well, could I offer you another perspective? Is there another way of seeing this? Or is that really true? Or is it possible that this actually may be doable? So they can approach it with a little more curiosity and a little bit more suave, and allow you to see those limiting beliefs. And when you do, if you're open to it, you can start to say, you know what, maybe there is another way of looking in this. And that gets us to empowering beliefs.
That's right. And I wanted to add to that it's so important, right? This is why it's so important to make sure that you're surrounding yourself with the right people. And it's not just somebody who challenges you, but also someone who is sensitive enough to know how to challenge you like you said, curiosity is a great way for somebody to challenge you. And it makes it easier to swallow, to actually shift your perspective. Sometimes, when we have different beliefs, especially if it's a global belief, it can be very difficult to change, right? Because you have this longstanding belief. It's probably not your belief. It's probably somebody else put that belief in your head, and you've carried this belief for the last 30, 40
You
years.
probably got it from your parents. Let's
That's
just
right.
blame them.
That's right. Exactly. And so to kind of shift that belief can take a little bit of somebody kind of nudging you and doing it in a kind way. Sometimes, the more aggressive approach can work, but it usually takes some reflection afterwards. But it is very helpful, and we've seen that many times. And we've done this for how many people, right? We've done this for so many people.
And we've done it badly too, right? We've said to our kids, well, that's just limiting belief or whatever, and that really doesn't get you very far. And we've done it to each other too. So this comes from a space of being able to recognize limiting beliefs, but then also call people out on limiting beliefs in not a productive way that doesn't allow them to really step back, question, and maybe see that insight, and then be able to switch into giving themselves an empowering belief.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then speaking of those empowering beliefs, you have these limiting beliefs, and oftentimes, you kind of look at the opposite of that, right? Which is going to be the totally opposite belief, which is typically more empowering. And if you start to believe these more empowering ones, then that kind of shifts everything, changes everything, both internally, but also your actions.
So what Kenji's talking about is a limiting belief might be, I'm not good at finances. And an empowering belief can be exactly the opposite. So it can be like, I'm great at finances. Or if you haven't gained the skill set to get there, just saying that may feel a little delusional, right? Because you're not in that space yet. But you can say, it's possible that I can be great at finances, or I'm becoming great at finances, or I'm working at finances and I'm going to be so much better at it in 6 months. Like, however it works for you to put it in your mind in a way that your brain says, yeah, that's real, right? That's what you're looking for. And that's that empowering belief. That's a replacement belief. And so next time you think to yourself, I'm not great at finances, you catch yourself and you remember, oh yeah, I'm learning finances and I'm going to be in a totally different situation a year from now. And that's the kind of ball that you start rolling, kind of the mindset shift, the tracks that you start creating in your brain that are new with that new empowering belief. And over time, it becomes easier and easier, and you don't fall into that limiting belief anymore. And then you start hearing it in everyone around you. You start hearing other people talking, and you start hearing their limiting beliefs, and you start hearing their stories, and you start recognizing that all of us have created this world view around us, this story of our lives and the story of how things are. And a lot of times they're wrong. They're completely wrong. And we're literally going around telling all of everybody around them. And a lot of times people just buy into your stories. So what a gift to have a friend who doesn't buy into your story, especially if it's a negative one, right? And especially if it's one that doesn't empower you, want you to be the better version of yourself, cause you to take action if you're not happy with something. That's really a gift to have that.
Yeah. And so to kind of summarize some of these steps we've just been talking about, a question is, how do you go from something that you never thought was possible for you and make it possible for you? And I think, again, the first step really is starting to just believe, hey, maybe this is possible for me. Just open the door a little bit and then start to really embrace it and say, wait, this is possible for me, right? And then once you get that conviction, then you can actually start taking the steps towards whatever direction you're going. And it can start with small steps. That's fine. Oftentimes the steps that you take, it's not a how, but a who, right? Finding somebody who can help you, maybe a mentor or something like that. If it's real estate investing, maybe it's a course. And then once you kind of start kind of taking those steps, what you'll often find is that you'll have a different set of beliefs, those limiting beliefs that we talked about, that crop up. And it's really important at this step to really just really be open, recognize when these limiting beliefs crop up, just accept that they're going to be there. They're there for everybody. And then also we talked about having a bunch of people around you, some people who can point out when you have a limiting belief in a kind way, in a curious way.
So what Kenji's talking about is you've got your initial limiting belief, you replace with an empowering belief, you're going forward, and what you're going to find often crops up is another limiting belief. And it's one that, is potentially new because now you're in a different situation and now you've got a new limiting belief kind of, or it might be one that was there for a long time and now all of a sudden you see it. This is like peeling layers from an onion. Okay. You get rid of some of those limiting beliefs, and then you find more and more. And so, for example, we'll just give you an example to kind of lock this in and make it really tangible for you. Kenji had this limiting belief, or we both had a limiting belief for a long time, actually, about partnerships in real estate. And we didn't want to get involved in partnerships. Partnerships were not going to end well. We had been in partnerships before where we did a lot of the work and we kind of walked away and we're like, oh my God, we were just like, we were the worker bees in that partnership. And like, we don't want to be in partnerships anymore. We're just going to do everything ourselves. That's the way to go.
Now, just imagine, right? If you have a belief that partnerships don't work, right? That literally was my belief. And so if that's the belief, there's no way we're going to even consider venturing into partnerships. So again, it's like, essentially it's not even possible. It's literally impossible for us to partner because we started out thinking partnerships fail.
And what's so interesting is how false that, like, if we had looked at it, how false we would already have known that belief was, because we are in a partnership.
Right.
Exactly. So we're buying real estate together in a partnership, in a marriage, saying partnerships don't work. Like, doesn't even make logical sense. And that's one of the keys here, is that, like, a lot of times they don't make logical sense. You can look at them in a third person and be like, that it doesn't even make sense, right? So here we are, married, buying properties together in a partnership, saying partnerships don't work. And I remember we had a conversation with somebody who had built their portfolio significantly larger than ours, and they were talking about partnerships and the benefit. And I remember walking with them and being like, partnerships aren't for us. We've had so many bad partnerships in the past. We're not doing partnerships. I remember us speaking to them. I remember the exact conversation because now I look back at it and I'm like, man, that was so wrong. That was such a limiting belief. And because we had that limiting belief, we didn't even explore it as a possibility.
And it's funny because I wonder what they were thinking, right? They were probably shaking their head going like,
What a limiting belief.
right, right, totally. They didn't call us out on it, right? But I remember that conversation
Yeah,
too.
yeah,
So
absolutely. So then what happened? What happened? Well, we had an opportunity for a partnership and we were saying no, right? And we went on a walk together because so much of our good thinking happens when we're on a walk. I remember that walk too, through the forest. And we were saying like, you were saying to me, like, we're not going to do it. And I said, wait, let's think about it a different way. Let's think about what's possible here. What could come out of this? And by the time we finished that walk, we had decided to do it, to try it. Okay. And we didn't go and say, oh, partnerships are going to be fabulous. What we did was said, hey, let's try this. There's a possibility this could be an amazing thing. Let's definitely have a great contract and plan for all the downsides and have a lot of frank conversations and set up a lot of scenarios so that everybody has an idea of what we're going to do in all those scenarios. So we spent a lot of time structuring the partnership in a way to avoid problems, talking to our partner frankly about making sure that, if this happened, then we were going to do this. And this is what was, and laying out all those scenarios. So we were prepared for when there were challenges to that partnership. And oh my gosh, it never was a challenge to that partnership. It was the most beautiful partnership. It lasted, I don't know, 3-4 years. And,
we sold the property.
right. It was so great. And I remember you saying to them, hey, let's assume something's going to go wrong. And, I think now I would say it just a little bit more tweak is like, let's plan as if something might go wrong, but let's assume this is going to be phenomenal. Like, let's assume this is going to be a 1 + 1 = 5 instead of a 1 + 1 = 2. And let's go in with that spirit, but let's plan for the downside just in case. And so that everything's clear and we all have agreements on it.
And I love that. I want to share again how we initially thought about it. And literally, it was like it was maybe partnerships could work. It was like literally cracking the door open, right? And again, that's magical, right? When that happens, your brain starts to go like, okay, well, give me all the reasons why it could work, right? And then you start to kind of, really start believing. And then, like you said, at the end of it, and especially after a successful partnership, we were like, let's go into every partnership believing that it's going to be amazing, right? And I think that that's a very, very different approach than what we had gone into our second partnership, thinking, okay, let's assume the worst here, but things still thinking that yeah, we're going to make this work, but let's just kind of assume that and talk about the worst case scenarios. Now, like you said, I think that it's great to start out even more positive and just being like, yeah, let's assume that this is going to be amazing.
Yeah, but let's make sure we all have agreements on all potential scenarios that can happen and that we have the appropriate legal documents, right? So that because that actually protects you. If you have those agreements ahead of time, both sides are protected because there's clarity on what's going to happen. If you enter into a partnership without any legal documents, with just a lot of handshakes and understandings, there's a lot of things that don't get communicated that are presumptions or expectations. And I will say that makes for a very challenging partnership when you start to run into issues. And I want to share one more kind of belief that we've now adopted about partnerships, because this is just all about choosing to believe whatever you want to believe, right? Whatever empowering belief or disempowering belief you want to have, you can choose it. So I think even now, if you asked us like one empowering belief we've more done about partnerships recently, is that partnerships create a bigger pie. And when you bring in partners, you have that potential for a much greater pie. And this comes out of us, running multiple businesses. We've got like 3 multi-million-dollar businesses now, and then we've got a couple other new startup ones, and we're running a lot of businesses, and doing it just ourselves, just doing it the two of us, will allow for a certain amount of growth, but it doesn't allow for the growth of a partnership can allow for, or the growth of really incredible employees can allow for. So it's really the who's. And so this is now a current belief, right? Will that shift in 5 years and be even broader and different? It probably will. But it's just to show you how empowering beliefs even shift over time.
Yeah, and I'll share some of the even the most recent thoughts about partnerships in a real estate context is that partnerships are the answer or part of the answer to I don't have enough time because I can, in certain cases, rely on partners to do a lot of the work. I can do so much more because I have partners who are willing to do certain things. And this is all pre-agreed upon, right? It's like you find a partner who is actually wants to do roll up their sleeves and do a lot of the work. And on our end, it's great because we have a lot of expertise and we bring a lot to the table. But one thing that we choose to in that situation to put into that, because we want to have our time focused elsewhere, is to put time into that specific deal, right? So that's kind of one new belief, and then the other one is that it actually replaces the limiting belief I don't have enough money, right? Partners is a solution to going out and either pooling money together, or also they can also contribute by capital raising, right? So
Right.
so now all of a sudden, like we've overcome these limiting beliefs of I don't have enough time, I don't have enough money, and replace them with new beliefs of like partners can help us, save us on time and also help us find money that we need to buy a deal.
And this is exactly what we're teaching our EV pros. These are our mastermind people, and they're coming in and we're saying you can buy any property of any size. And how crazy is a thought that to somebody who hasn't ever bought any real estate, or maybe you own a couple of duplexes and you're like, wait, you can buy any property of any size? That is a real empowering belief because it takes away so many limitations that you've probably already put on yourself if you're listening to this. And all you just need is the skill sets and the right who's to be able to do that. And it's absolutely possible. In fact, we're in that position now where we can buy any property of any size. And we have the skills and relationships to do so actually fairly easier, even easily, I want to say, but even easier than maybe it was back in the day to get our first and second duplex. It's actually easier now.
And that's how we added, 1,500 syndicated units in the last 24 months, right?
Right.
Through partnerships, through capital raising, and it's just amazing growth over the exponential growth over the last like 24 months.
Now, this is not to say if you are just starting out, you're a couple and you're getting your first duplex that you shouldn't be doing that. I think that is an amazing journey. Like all of these are skill sets you build over time, and limiting beliefs, like pieces of an onion, right? You peel off a layer, get another layer, and over time you're just expanding your threshold of control. And so I'm so happy that we started out the way we did. I'm so happy we just started out with us, and then we started our little with our little $176,000 duplex and buying it and build, and learning all those basic skills because it ultimately got us to where we are today. And so it's okay to start where you're starting. There's no right answer. Just know that your journey is going to be expansive if you continue to expand your mind and you continue to recognize limiting beliefs and peel them away and replace them with empowering beliefs.
Now, one more aspect of beliefs that I wanted to talk about is that you can create a new belief based on examples of other people's success, right? And so I think about, let's say, running the 4-minute mile. When you had an example of it, then once you had an example of that, somebody successfully running a 4-minute mile, then you go, oh, then it's possible for me, right? But I also wanted to kind of talk about the person who does it for the first time, right? So Roger Bannister, when he ran the first 4-minute mile, he had to believe, even though it hadn't been done before, he had to believe that he could do it, right? And so I wanted to talk about there's kind of these two flavors of belief. One is beliefs that you get based on other people doing it. And also there's beliefs that you kind of go, nobody's ever done this before. At least I don't know anybody who's done this before, but I believe I can do it. And I just wanted to say that that's also possible too, right? Like the beliefs don't have to come from just other people's success. You can actually go out and achieve new things. Or I also wanted to mention that there's the other side of this where if you have a particular challenge that you don't know anybody who's dealt with it, you can believe that you can overcome that challenge or you can handle that challenge and get to the other side, and get through it just as it's supposed to unfold, right? And it's solvable. And so I just wanted to say that you even if you don't have that example, it's okay, right? Just start with a belief, and then that's the first step to actually solving that problem.
Yeah. And if you circle back to the very beginning of this, I said, if you have that belief, you can believe that just by having that belief, it's possible for you. And if you choose to take that on, then when Roger Bannister came up with, hey, I want to run a less than 4-minute mile, just him having that belief made it possible. And that's really empowering as well. Okay, we wanted to give you guys some action steps because we know we've covered a lot of territory here. So let's say you want to put this into action. What can you do? Number one is write down one big goal you've previously had, but you've dismissed and you've said, oh, this is impossible. It can't be done. I can't do it. Whatever it is, just think back and think in the last year or two if there was something you really wanted to do, but you had dismissed as impossible. You had some limiting beliefs about it, but you didn't recognize them. Number two, identify the limiting beliefs that are tied to that goal. So maybe one of your goals is I'm going to climb Mount Everest. And maybe your limiting beliefs are I'm too old and I don't have the money to pay for an expedition, right? Those might be two limiting beliefs associated with that. Now create empowering replacement beliefs to those limiting beliefs. So let's say I don't have the funds for it. Well, you know what? I could raise the funds. I could do some charity events. I could do something to, or I could even, maybe I could go get a loan, whatever it is. Like there's ways to come up with money. So you don't have the funds, yes, but you can say, you know what, there are ways for me to go find the money. There's ways for me to go make the money. Maybe I'm gonna take up moonlighting, whatever it is. There are ways to get the funds, and you start to kind of recognize that it's a possibility. And maybe the other one is I'm too old. Well, maybe there's somebody older than you have climbed Mount Everest. Like maybe you should go look, or maybe you can use another example. Maybe you could say, you know what, I heard there was like some 95-year-old who ran a marathon this year. Like they're 95. I'm like 60. Like, why couldn't I do this? Right. And so then that case, you're using somebody else as an example. If you can look around you, or you can use yourself as an example. You say, well, you know what? Like last year, I said to myself, I was too old to, do 29029, which is a mountain climbing thing that Kenji's going to do, where you climb up a mountain so many times so that you hit the height of Mount Everest. But you know what? I actually went and did it last year. So I've proven that I can climb 29,000 feet. So maybe it's possible for me to do it at high altitude, right? So you see how this process is working. The number four is you take one more small action today that aligns with the new beliefs. So we had a really great goal setting workshop every single year. We do this. If you attended, you probably have been taking some action based on your goals. So let's say you set that goal then of, hey, I'm going to climb Mount Everest next year. Now take one small action right away while you're in state, while you've made this decision to make that a possibility. Okay, I'm going to start researching right now, or I'm going to create my training program, or I'm going to call a personal trainer, or I'm going to find somebody who trains people how to climb Mount Everest and I'm going to sign up, right? Those are some of the actions you can take. And then it's just taking the next step and the next step. It's like a ladder. You take the next step, you take the next step, and all of a sudden you end up at the end of some goal that seemed insurmountable and very, very far away. Just take one step at a time, and slowly and surely you get that with persistence and with regularity, right? Okay. So here's our final kind of closing thoughts on this is everything you want to achieve starts with a belief. So why not believe in something amazing, that something you are capable of doing so much phenomenal, quote unquote, impossible things, that you can build an extraordinary life, that you can create more than you can even imagine. Why not start there? Why start with all the things you can't do, or all the things that are impossible, like so many people do? Why not be that outlier and say, you know what, I can achieve anything, any thought, any belief that comes into my mind.
And remember that the only limits are the ones you set in your own mind. And so once you understand that, then you can start identifying them, replacing those limiting beliefs with empowering ones, and start to take real action towards your goals.
Okay, well, hopefully you enjoyed this episode of the Doctors Building Wealth podcast. If you have some limiting beliefs or replacement beliefs that you have identified and you want to share them with us, feel free to write to support@semiretiredmd.com. We love hearing from all of you guys and hearing from your insights that you get from the podcast. Remember to subscribe to the podcast and share it with a friend who you think really needs to hear this. Maybe there's someone around you who you've heard some of their limiting beliefs recently, or maybe there's someone around you who's really inspiration to you because they seem to just smash those limiting beliefs and continue to do things that you never thought was possible. And you want to share with them of why they're such an inspiration to you and why they're a model for you for what's possible. We'll see you next episode.